When you look at the level of nepotism in Nigeria and how Igbophobia has continued to rise ever since the amalgamation of Nigeria, one is forced to wonder why Igbos are hated. For the young Igbo of this generation who do not have knowledge of Nigeria's history and the level of attacks the Igbo have suffered at the hands of other Nigerians, they are often left surprised as to why they are despised by others, even when they are open-hearted and contribute to the growth of their host communities. In this documentary, we are going to try to pinpoint certain verses and characters in Nigeria's history that recorded or show why Igbos are hated, and the cause for this hatred or Igbophobia. But before we dive into it, let us first carve out a definition for Igbophobia. Igbophobia is simply the fear of the Igbo people or person. This fear, in the Nigerian context, stems from various attributes of the Igbo. But at the top of the list is the undisputable fact that the Igbo are very industrious and are high achievers in whatever field of endeavor they find themselves. And since they are high achievers, they would most likely succeed better than the indigents of whatever community they settle in. And as is common with human nature, success breeds envy. And in the Nigerian context, the Igbo man's success is seen as an attempt to dominate or subdue others. The amalgamation of Nigeria, the British dislike of the Igbo, and how it transferred to other Nigerians. From the inception and creation of the country called Nigeria, there has been a disposition of dislike for the Igbo. Many believe that this disdain for the Igbo was handed down from the British to the Northerners mainly. Or maybe this disdain for the Igbo was developed by the North, the West, and other parts of Nigeria because the Igbo were successful strangers in their host communities. The British, being the architects of Nigeria, disliked the Igbo because they were and are difficult to conquer or rule. The Igbo had a mind of their own and posed a great challenge to the colonialist government structure. The Igbo lived an individualistic and egalitarian life and did not have a central authority through which the British could have ruled them. The difficulty of the Igbo drove the British to create more alliances with the northern emirs, among other leaders of other ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. So, at amalgamation, the favorites of the British were the Northerners, even though they had little resources to contribute to the creation and effective administration of the new nation called Nigeria. As the nation progressed after amalgamation, and there was a movement of Southerners to the north and Northerners to the south, the majority of the Southerners, or will I say Easterners, in the north were the Igbo. The Aba Women's Protest, or War, of 1929 to 1930 was another clear indication to the British that the Easterners, especially the Igbo, were not to be trusted or given certain opportunities. This period was also the time when Igbo workers started to migrate to the north, west, and midwest to work in the rail lines, do business, and later become part of the civil service, since the majority of the Igbo were educated. Between amalgamation in 1914 and the 1950s, the population of the Igbo had grown extensively in the north and western parts of Nigeria. They were also very successful in their businesses, crafts, and duties in the civil government. This build-up led to the popular sentiment of Igbo domination in Nigeria, but especially in the north, where the Igbo were never fully welcomed and were made to live in secluded areas called Sabongeri. The Igbo domination mantra led to the popular statement by Sir Ahmadu Bello, the then Premier of the North. In an interview with a European correspondent from the international press, when asked why the North was so obsessed about their counterparts from the East, the Igbo, he made the following remarks.
Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp, and so on.
The Igbo domination mantra and general dislike for the Igbo, whom the British and everyone else felt were too loud and proud, somewhat became a uniting factor in pre-independence Nigeria and post-independence Nigeria among the various ethnic nationalities in Nigeria, but more potent in the north. One of the results of the pre-independence pieces of evidence of why Igbos area was the Jos riot of 1945 and the killing of Ndi Igbo, which was as a result of increased tension between the Northerners and the Easterners, a product of the Igbo domination and encroachment sentiment in the North. Another was the massacre of Igbo coal miners in Enugu on 18th November 1949 by Northern soldiers under the command of British officers. 21 Igbo men were shot dead, while 51 Igbo people who had nothing to do with the differences between the NPC and the action group, who never showed up in Kano. This also is another evidence of why Igbos are in Nigeria, because if not for sheer hate and disdain, why would the northern mob organized to harass Chief Akintola and his people turn on the Igbo and destroy their properties? The hostilities against the Igbo in Nigeria would continue till after independence. The 1966 coup of January, led by Major Chukwuma Nzogu, was the perfect ignition to the time bomb that had been taken in Nigeria. The coup was an excuse to unleash genocide against the Igbo. And by 1971, the genocide, which lasted 4 years, had taken more than 3 million Igbo lives. The first year, 1966, saw over 100,000 Igbo being killed in various pogroms in the north, while 1967 to 1971 saw millions killed in the Biâfrans War. In the 3 to 4 years of the war, history saw the whole of Nigeria, the Hausa Fulani, the Yoruba, the Tiv, the Idoma, the Benin, and other ethnic nationalities turn against the Igbo and attempted to wipe them from the face of the earth, in what would be described as an African Holocaust. After the war, which was fought to stop the Igbo from leaving the Nigerian state, the Igbo who wanted their nation were forced to return to the federation called Nigeria, but were never fully welcomed back into the nation. What they faced after the war was economic ostracization, political marginalization, and social bullying. This marginalization, which is a precipitate of the Igbophobia in Nigeria, is still present to date.